Oh my god, he's doing the same thing as democracy. Why is everybody so fucking spineless? Yes, there's something wrong with you. You don't consider something a reward unless you like it and it's specifically relevant to you. We get it. You sound like a child right now. You sound like a child who learned big words to put like a paragraph together. Like, does somebody at the beginning, like at the board meeting for the DLC go like, all right, we're going to commit to quantity and not quality. Everybody understand? Like, what are you talking about?
Let me state that I like Joseph Anderson a lot. He is my main motivation behind me becoming a YouTuber in the first place. There's definitely a chance that if there's no
Everything
Joseph
makes
Anderson
sense now.
channel, there is no Feeble.
But then he did like go back and finish it. Be careful, chat. He may actually lose his mind if he sees Asmund fight with Dawn. See, I knew that, like... Yeah, that's the thing. I know it's gonna upset me. Did you see new... Oh no. Did it happen? Have I been proven to be the Cassandra of the Soulsborne space? Oh boy. Oh boy, Feeble King. Oh fuck. Is this gonna be a stream where I wake people up? I think it might be. Alright, well, I'm gonna look at... I'm not gonna watch the Feeble King video just yet, but let me look at what it's called and shit. Wouldn't it be crazy if I was in it? I know I'm not gonna be, but like my video has like 60 views and I'm pretty sure Feeble King isn't one of them. Shadow of the Archery is still very disappointing to me in response to Joseph Anderson. Jesus fucking stop! Why do you want to suck Joseph Anderson off so much? Jesus Christ, Feeble King. He said it's not his kind of game and compares it to not liking sushi. And it's like, what, dog, why review the game? Yeah, like, what? That's a good reason to not make a fucking whole ass critique video about it if you're just like not that into it. How is anything that you're gonna say like that relevant to anyone who cares about it then? What a piece of shit. Like, what an actual fucking piece of shit. You played 80 hours of it, by the way? Yeah, alright. Sounds about right. I'm already struggling because of mouse and keyboard and now I'm distracting myself, but it sucks too because he loves to fall back on the, oh, it's just video games. It's just me talking about video games. Oh, are you really so mad I said it wasn't as good as you think it is? So he always has like that excuse of like, oh, it's not serious, bro. But like, it's... No one is trying to say this is like fucking World War III. It's just like, we want you to get it right if you're going to talk about it. Fuck. I might be being soy, but art critiques should be taken seriously. No, I agree with you. Like, I feel like you should have a level of understanding. That's why, like, when I can't remember if I was talking about democracy or Joseph Anderson at the time, but I really only want to see, like, or this isn't a good way to say it, because I am interested in dog shit reaction videos for, like, or dog shit, critique videos for the sake of reactions, but, I really only take seriously, I think, the opinions of people who are like actually obsessed with these games. Like, I don't know, because like then I know you're at least as invested as me, probably more so in most people's cases with that. But like, I don't know, Joseph Anderson is not one of those people, and like I didn't realize just the extent to which he pretends to be, because like so much of his channel is videos about these games specifically, because he just barely makes any videos again. But yeah. I feel like, past a certain point, all you have to do on YouTube to be taken seriously is post, like, long videos only every once in a while that seem really deep and informative. And it's like, I don't know. It's like Joseph Anderson makes videos that seem, like, super high effort, but they're, like, not. They're actually, like, really fucking lazy, it seems, from what I gather. But you can't really tell unless you are an obsessive person about the games that he's talking about, you know? And then everybody's gonna come along and say you're in a cult. I've never stopped rewatching that Feeble King video. Like, I go back and rewatch it, the one that I made. That flask thing fucking baffles me with him, because he literally didn't even check through the entire process of making the video until, like, his last fucking look through of it. He was like, oh, I actually had +9. and then like threw in a fucking annotation on the video like, oh, I guess I actually didn't have max flasks, but it doesn't matter. And it's like, what? How does anyone take anything you say seriously ever? Okay. He was so committed to just shitting on the game. He was so excited to have a controversial opinion that he literally didn't even like check his fucking facts of his own character. The people just say like completely retarded things about the DLC and they like out themselves. It's like a fucking such a self-report. Every DLC criticism that's made. Democracy can't fucking read because he couldn't tell the numbers were getting higher when he used the Skidoo tree blessing. Theo wanted the boss to only respond to your roll once it's seen you roll, because otherwise how does it know you're gonna roll to defend yourself? I'm gonna go pee. I can't even focus on the game. I can't fucking do this, guys. I can't play it on mouse and keyboard. I can't do this. I'm gonna get my PlayStation or something and start over. Shit. You know, I thought the Feeble King thing was gonna take longer. What did I say? 3 to 6 months? Has it been 3 months since his original take dropped? Also, it may not be like a walk back video. He said he's still disappointed, but he's also responding to Joe, of course, which means he's probably gonna show deference to him as usual. Oh man, okay. I'm putting together the DMod video now, and that one's even more fun to edit than the Feeble King one because it's more. It's even less substantive, and it's more just me shitting on democracy for being retarded, which, like, fair. He is very stupid. It's just like, okay, here's something I want. Whenever somebody wants to criticize the games or, like, the bosses for a specific thing, like, just think about how what you're saying would be fixed. Like, the fix to the problem that you're identifying, like, how that would be implemented and how that would affect the game. I'm thinking of something that Theo said specifically, where he said something like, he was complaining that, like, bosses, like, individual bosses have attacks with, like, drastically different pacings to that. Something like that, where, like, they have slow attacks and really fast attacks, and, like, it was just, like, so, like, what do you want, then? Do you want every attack that each boss does to be the exact same pace? So like there's like a set pace for each boss that just like you can always employ? Like what is the alternative there? Like it just feels like every time somebody wants to throw out a criticism, or not every time, but a lot of the time, like it's just like they haven't actually thought about it really. It's just like some bullshit. I know I've said that a million times, but this is like a specific type of it that's like interesting to me. Like think out the things that you're saying to their logical conclusions, I guess is what my point is. Okay, I guess we'll watch the Feeble King video now. Oh wow, it's long too. Shit, God. Should deliver them in a way that was oh my God, he's doing the same thing as democracy. Why is everybody so fucking spineless?
Hello, I have returned from the Fallout bunker I was hiding in while all the hate bombs from the Fromsoft community were being hurled my way. I agree that my critique was not perfect.
You had to wait for... 2 reasons you had to wait for Joseph Anderson to put out his video. One is so that he could suck him off more, and the other one is so that he could base his video on Joe's. Because this is like the same as fucking Joseph's opening segment, except even more fucking deferential.
None of
Or actually, no, Joseph's wasn't deferential at all. This is like the inverse of it in a weird way.
Videos are, but I haven't.
I don't know. It's gonna make me
will
uncomfortable.
probably never change my overall opinion on Shadow of the Erdtree. Still, I think it's worth clarifying issues people had with the video. And more important than that, I realized that I failed to mention what might be one of my biggest problems with the entire DLC. I'm going to try to come across as less aggressive in this video. So
dude, you didn't come across aggressive. You just came across like a dumb fuck who said a bunch of stupid shit. Like it wasn't. You never come across aggressive. I don't think it's possible. I don't think you have an aggressive, like inch of your vocal cords.
comment section will be less toxic, although I don't think it'll work. Also, I'm going to later talk about some issues I had with Joseph Anderson's video. Afterwards, I'll even do a bit of responding to the comments, my favorite, least favorite activity. Now that some time has passed, let me reanalyze what I find to be the worst part of Shadow of the Erdtree.
Okay.
Bad extrinsic rewards for exploration. To me, a good reward is one that directly makes my build stronger. If you look
Feeble King, that's so fucking stupid, dude. That's so fucking stupid, dude. Come on, we're really doing the rewards thing again? Like, really? That's the one thing that you felt you needed to clarify. It's like the longest fucking section of your video, and it's the same point like 18 times. Like, really? We know. Yes, there's something wrong with you. You don't consider something a reward unless you like it and it's specifically relevant to you. We get it. Okay. Are you going to say anything other than that in this section of this video?
Difficulty encourages people to play to the meta, which makes even more stuff useless. Almost all spirit ashes found in the DLC are useless if you're just going to summon mimic tier.
Feeble King, maybe I'll put this in a way that, you know how like when like on Christmas, like if you get a present that you don't like, you still like tell the person thank you? It's like that. Okay? These things are all still rewards in the game, and just because they're not what you asked for or wanted, that doesn't invalidate them. Okay.
Most DLC weapons are useless since they're worse than what you found in the base game, and the amazing ones are rare rewards. Levels are mostly useless since I hit all my caps. Even if you loved all the weapons and cookbooks in the DLC, we can agree that Shadow Tree fragments are the best consistent reward for exploration, since they make all builds stronger. It may sound like hyperbole, so let me state I am not being hyperbolic when I say Shadow Tree blessings not being the rewards for dungeons is the single worst decision I've ever seen.
Oh my god, why does he fucking just, oh my god, just make a different, just film another part where you talk. Stop making me have to pause, please. Worse than DS2, fog walls, not having iframes, good rewards for exploration in an open world is very important to me. Okay. Well, maybe you should play it like an open world game then, and experiment a bit more with your build and try things if the rewards are so important to you. Fuck. Because it's all there. It's all there. Like, the way that you play the game is it counter to you enjoying it then. Feeble King. This is a you problem. This is such a fucking you problem. I'm not going to pretend the rewards in Shadow of the Erdtree are perfect, because, like, I was annoyed by the amount of cookbooks, too, but, like, it's nowhere near as bad as he's making it out to be.
Fromsoft game. It is so
I didn't read the second half.
The
I don't
way
care.
that
Fuck you.
Unlock the best reward in exploration isn't by doing the content, it's by tediously picking up every item in the overworld until you find the only
Exploring is doing the content, Feeble King. It's an open world game, which you are very insistent on reminding us, so yes.
important item sets. I guess they did this to give you an incentive to explore the mostly empty overworld, but surely they could have had the bosses drop the majority of Shadow Tree fragments.
Yeah, sure.
Hit a
That would
few
have been
extra
cool. I would have
ones
been fine
around
with
the
that.
world to reward exploration. Maybe they could have had a bit more fragments in the world than is needed to hit max level, but no. Let's take another open world game as a point of comparison, Breath of the Wild.
Oh,
I don't like the rewards in this game either, but I do think it accomplishes the bare minimum. Completing shrine mini dungeons rewards you with a spirit orb, and 4 spirit orbs increases your health.
Pretend this is okay, dude.
Now
whatever.
imagine Breath of the Wild.
I'm barely
but the
paying attention to this
rewards for
section
shrines
anyway,
are
so
weapons, and the spirit orbs are scattered about the open world.
I'm speeding
at
this up.
random
Oh my god, I
places.
can't believe we're doing a whole another fucking thing about rewards. Oh my god.
We'll assume the weapons don't break and that there are more than 3 weapon types in this hypothetical to make the situation more similar to Elden Ring. Now there is no reason to do shrines past whenever you get enough good weapons, so after that you'll just look up on a guide where all the spirit orbs are located and complete the game without interacting with any of the structured content. A worse alternative, which is what I did for Shadow of the Erdtree, is you just aimlessly wander around the open world without a guide looking for the only important items. This experience would suck and be absolutely unacceptable in any open world game, yet it's literally the framework Shadow of the Erdtree is built around. Of course the comparison isn't one-to-one. Shadow of the Erdtree's map is mostly just empty space with fewer mini dungeons than in Breath of the Wild. However, it doesn't matter if it's a mini dungeon or a legacy dungeon. I think almost all boss fights in the DLC had unsatisfactory rewards.
To be fair, some legacy dungeons had scattered tree fragments on the way to a boss, so it's important that I get rewarded for overcoming the end goal of a dungeon, which is the boss and the vast majority. You sound like a child right now. You sound like a child who learned big words to put like a paragraph together.
Levels are useless. So all I get for the kill is 2 remembrance weapons, and I don't think build switching in and of itself is a good enough reward in a FromSoft game. I know many people will disagree with that, so let me explain. The reason I don't think build switching is a good reward in FromSoft games could be a 10-minute section in and of itself, so I'll try to condense the information here. FromSoft makes enemy-focused games where the main challenge is responding correctly to their combo chains and capitalizing on tiny openings. To reinforce this playstyle, many enemies are aggressive, have big combos, and many bosses and enemies don't stagger on hit to punish you for being too aggressive.
Yeah.
You're not given much in the way of combos, just a light and heavy combo, and these combos do little to impact gameplay when it's mostly just do damage.
Shows himself using a light greatsword, which has the most complex move chains they've ever made. Yeah, okay.
Dodge when the boss attacks. There are a few other attacks with charged heavy and jumping attacks, which are fairly similar between builds. The only
Are you fucking kidding? Oh my god, I hate this motherfucker so much. Jesus Christ.
Attacks with charged heavies and jumping attacks, which are fairly.
The lady is more different than most because heavy attacks come out as 2 instead of 1. Yeah. I know the footage I'm using undermines my point, but let me put this text here so I can pretend that's not an issue. Fucking, I hate this guy so much.
The only meaningful differences between most attacks are the damage,
oh my god,
how long it takes to come out, and the range. You do get cool looking attacks in the form of weapon arts, but they take so long to come out that you won't be.
Obviously, this depends on the weapon art. Like,
be able to use them very often against most boss openings. Meanwhile, a game like
Feeble King, you having to put this much text in your videos means that like you need to fucking go back to the drawing board. Holy shit.
5 is all about combo chaining on enemies to create openings for yourself while shutting down the enemy's ability to respond. Normal enemies are a bit less aggressive to encourage this playstyle. Already the focus on the player thinking through combos to create more openings makes every new weapon impact gameplay directly. But the awesomeness doesn't stop there. A character like Dante has around 100 attacks all in one kit, and different combos change the state of either.
Is that what you want? Do you want that for Elden Ring? Souls games are Devil May Cry games. Why does everybody do this? Like,
or the player. You can throw enemies into the air.
The whole reason that people like fucking Soulsborne in the first place is because they're not like other action games. Like,
ground juggle, shock stun, stab, gap closer, spin, gap closer. And
I get maybe he's not saying that it should be more like Devil May Cry necessarily, but like
your attacks to set up a high damage combo that'll stun many enemies. Keep in mind this is a surface level analysis. You can do a lot more than that in DMC. Although there are only 3 good.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. Stop.
Keep in mind this is a surface level analysis. You can do
like he puts these paragraphs on there that he clearly wants people to read, but they flash for like a fraction of a second. Like, why do you do this? Why do you make videos like this, Feeble King?
A lot more than that in DMC. Although there are
obviously this is meant to be read. It's not like a bit like Joseph Anderson does. So like, why is it there for such little time? If you want me to engage with it, you fucking moron. I know the comparison isn't one-to-one because Devil May Cry 5 doesn't make you commit to build since you can weapon switch. I'm comparing these games to provide an example where weapon... Maybe you should have taken this whole fucking point out then if you realized it was meaningless, you retard.
Each new set of
Jesus Christ.
Like playing an entirely new game. The difference in the animation that plays when I get my tiny opening against another brutal boss in Elden Ring makes me feel nothing. And stronger builds in this game only rewards me with either not having to learn the boss combos or not having to learn as many.
Wouldn't that be good? Because you don't like the boss combos? Isn't that an actual reward, even in your retarded framework?
Also balances ranged attacks by making them deal less damage than melee weapons. To clarify for the straw man arguments in the comments section...
Like, actually, yes. Like, unironically, yes, it would be. But...
FromSoft games should have Devil May Cry combo lists. These are different types of games with different goals. I'm also not trying to say that you can't do anything fun with the builds in FromSoft games, like dodge and attack with a mobility-based weapon.
Okay.
All I am saying is that the focus on reacting to strong enemies makes me care less about what my character's attacks are. Back to the topic of poor rewards for bosses. I've heard on the internet that many boss weapons and DLC weapons in general are underwhelming in comparison to what is found in the base game, although I don't enjoy weapon variety in Souls games enough to test if this is true.
Where have you heard that?
Back to the topic of poor rewards for...
Hang on. Did I hear that right?
Bosses. I've heard on the internet that many boss weapons and DLC weapons in general are underwhelming in comparison to what is found in the base game.
I've not heard anybody say that. I've heard literally the opposite from everyone. What? Where is he hearing this? Who does he talk to?
Although I don't enjoy weapon variety in Souls games enough to test if this is true.
I fucking just...
Even if you love build variety in these games, unless you burn a larval tier every time you find a new weapon that doesn't fit your build, you won't end up using a good amount of the rewards on any
Yeah, but like even the weapons within the same build are varied. Like that's
playthrough. Therefore,
it's just him pretending there are more hurdles than there are to make a stronger point, like fucking always.
The idea to have meaningful rewards for all builds upon completing content. Isn't that the bare minimum?
Aren't there like 18 larval tiers in the game? I don't know. I've never used one, but Maybe,
This is the
probably.
one point of mine that I'm confused is not already the majority opinion. I'd go as far as to say that this DLC has the worst extrinsic rewards of any open world game I've played.
Cool.
That is, if Oblivion didn't exist. Scaling ruined that game. If Fromsoft patched
Wow, what a hot take, bro.
so that every remembrance
What a hot take if it was like 2006 when that game came out, literally.
2 shadow fragments and every mini dungeon boss dropped 1, I'd be instantly more excited whenever I found any new piece of content in the open world. You could say this would make it worse on repeat playthroughs with new characters, but
Also, everybody bitching about the Death Knights can go fuck themselves. The Death Knights are sick, man. There's 2 of them also. Like, why are people acting like they're everywhere and they're like this like egregious example of boss reuse? As far as I know, there's 2 and they're different. So like, what the fuck are you talking about?
having to collect items across the empty map is already terrible for replayability, so they might as well go all the way and make the rewards.
And they're awesome.
The bare
Like,
some will excuse
to put a
this, saying,
subjective spin
"It's
on it,
just
I think they're really
DLC,
fucking
so it
cool."
doesn't need good rewards for the content. It's not like other FromSoft DLCs have great progression trees, and I have issues with this argument. Shadow of the Erd Tree is
Oh my
not
God, why
a
is it-
10-hour
what is that?
high-quality linear experience that shoves all the great content in your face. It's a 40 to 50-hour open-world game that hides its quality content across vast expanses of empty space. They need a good motivation to get me to trudge through all of the empty space. And yes, it's big enough.
But for some reason that motivation has to be actual items. Like, why? What is wrong with you? What is actually wrong with you that you've gotten this far into the series with that being so important to you?
Consider it to be a whole new game, but that isn't always a positive when the game in question is bloated, full of reskins, and has poor rewards. Shadow of the Erd Tree is the only FromSoft game I've ever played.
He is saying that it's different because it's an open world game, right? But like, you're not approaching it like an open world game. You're approaching it like a Souls game. So of course, like I would never make this criticism because the rewards are just straight up not important to me, like past a certain point. Once I find the weapon and armor I'm going with, it's like I'm done. I'm good. So like I don't care after that. But like I feel like I assumed that that's how most people felt. Like once you get your build set, it's like the rewards are kind of irrelevant. And like FromSoft has always been like such a great company to hold up as an example of like content being its own reward too. Like,
yet I regretted not using a guide because almost
oh my God, when I say almost all, I mean almost all of the map is empty space. Not that almost all of your time spent playing the game is exploring empty space. I guess 30 to 40% of playtime is in the open world, and the rest is split between dungeon and boss content. Holy shit! Wow, it's fucking crazy, dude.
In retrospect, I should have just beeline.
Do you really think the problem? I'm getting the sense with all these fucking walls of text he keeps throwing up that he feels like the problem with his first video, or one of them, was that he wasn't clear enough. It's like, no, everybody gets it. You're just fucking stupid. And you
it to the fragments and fought the bosses. People praise the open world for
Which is
being
wrong,
vertically
more to the point.
interconnected, and yeah, it's alright. I think I don't care about it because the reward of reskinned overworld bosses, NPC bosses, and empty fields for every new location bored me. After being let down by the empty open world so many times, I started to feel dread when I
God, we're not even
discovered
10
a new
minutes into
area
this yet.
instead
Holy
of
shit.
joy. When levels don't matter and most overworld enemies are copy-pasted and easy to run past with your horse, it's hard not to see even the more full areas of the DLC as empty space. Despite Elden Ring being the most successful FromSoft game yet, I don't think FromSoft's core design style of carefully crafted ambushes in a dangerous environment works very well in an open world.
Well, I don't I don't even want to say this. I don't fully disagree with the sentiment of what he's saying, but I don't think he understands the problem. Like, the people who have the better point in my mind are like Matthew Matosis and the Theo person, and that like maybe a bit of the quality level design has been lost with like the streamlining of everything and other things becoming more of a focus. Because it's not quite the same approach to level design as it was before. Like everything is a bit less thought out and curated, but that's fine.
Some people forgive Shadow of the Erd.
It's not that it doesn't work in an open world. I mean, maybe that's also a problem, but like,
lack
know.
of dungeon content, saying that the overworld feels like one big legacy dungeon. But due to the lack of substantial rewards and well-designed encounters, to me the overworld is more like a pretty loading screen separating me from the good content. And I like it better when that loading screen is shorter. There were some minor issues with my last video that the comment section used to invalidate all of my negative opinions as objectively incorrect. However, after much reflection, I realized that the biggest mistake that I made was not being negative enough, or at least not in the right ways. There was something that I disliked about the level and boss design that I couldn't quite put my finger on for a while until I saw other video essayists mention it.
Right.
There's
a
distinct lack of creativity in Shadow of the Erdtree. Rat is another city level with a sewer-like Lendil that is smaller and has less interesting design. Castle Ensis is another fort. Fort of Reprimand is another fort. Stone Coffin Fissure is another underground city. Even my favorite part of the DLC, Shadow Keep, is basically just another castle wall level duct-taped onto the Grand Archive.
What do you want, like a spaceship or something? Like what?
The new Londo.
There's only so much we got here. It's a fantasy world.
Yes, most of the legacy dungeons are too short, and yes, they do reuse too many enemies between each other and from the overworld. But the worst part was how it all felt like I was going through the motions. It's almost like Dark Souls depression, where every game feels the same as the last.
I don't know.
And
Just stop then, Feeble King. You're hurting yourself at this point.
Were unique enough to feel like their own, however short-lived those dungeons were. I wasn't sure why I felt so positive towards these short dungeons.
I think people are just burnt out on these fucking games, and they don't want to admit it.
When I initially made my critique.
Like, yeah, it's similar. A lot of the themes and, like, visuals and stuff, and, like, I don't know. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, everyone likes that for the most part. Like,
on paper, they're kind of just as
going through the motions, then don't bitch. Yeah.
Now that I view it through the lens of creativity, it makes more sense why these stood
Right. Yeah. Now that somebody gave you like something that sounds more intelligent to bitch about, you agree with that instead of what you said at first. We know your game by now, Feeble King. Nice try though.
A heavenly castle in the sky, which I don't think I've seen before in a FromSoft game. And Midra's Mainz is a spooky mansion in the middle of a forest where you start hearing voices. Last time I criticized Dark Souls 3 for lacking creativity, I was met with comments telling me that I'm stupid because Dark Souls 3 has differences not found in other FromSoft games.
Also, the lack of originality in Dark Souls 3 is kind of the point. Also, that would be my argument against that.
Yes. There are creative elements in Shadow of the Erdtree, just as there are...
Like, Dark Souls 3 is Miyazaki screaming at FromSoft fans, please let me stop making Dark Souls.
Dark Souls 3. I'm just saying that it wasn't enough to hook me in emotionally, which is an opinion. The only positive I didn't mention about the level design in my original critique was how the mini-dungeons were more consistently interesting than in the base game. I didn't mention it because the map was so empty that I saw them choosing quality over quantity in their side content as a bad decision. You can't...
That's such a weird sentence. I'm not even gonna try to unpack it, but let's just
throw around a bunch of reskins and NPC bosses everywhere to fill it out. I didn't. And
like choosing quality over quantity. Like does somebody at the beginning, like at the board meeting for the DLC, go like, "All right, we're gonna commit to quantity and not quality. Everybody understand?" Like, what are you talking about? What do you think happens in like video game design companies, Feeble King? I would be very interested to know what you think like video game shareholder board meetings look like. Dungeons, underground cities, castles, forts, insert yes, that's why I'm here, meme. Yeah, exactly. Like what are you talking about? The fantasy game has fantasy tropes in it. Okay. The dungeons were so much better. And yeah, also they were like just literally straight up better, but don't mention that. Yeah.
Credit for the decision to increase the quality of the side dungeons when I don't agree with it. Shrink the map to fit the content, don't inflate the content to match the map. Getting back to the central issue of
What?
creativity, I find most boss mechanics to lack innovation.
We're just in schizo land whenever we watch one of these videos. I need to accept that or I'm going to actually go insane. Like, they're just I got to stop expecting things to have, like, a logical consistency to them when it's just not how this works.
Boss models and attacks do look creative, the main exceptions being Rolana dual-wielding magic and fire swords like Pontiff, Radon being Radon again with a prince on his back like twin princes, and Bale having many...
Like... I think you guys need to play other games. I think that's the problem, actually. This is like, what is it? Like, you've only ever played World of Warcraft or something, and it, plays another video game. I'm getting strong World of Warcraft vibes from this. It's like that. It's like you're like mired in Fromsoft land, but also these people aren't in, like, they're not obsessive enough to make good criticisms of the games, but they're also not, but they're also too obsessed. How do you do this? How is your brain like this? Okay.
Similar attacks to Midir. Also, Ramana was a little bit like Quilag, but she had a bit more going on with the color theory of her boss, so I kind of liked it. Although I do think most
we need to study this man when he dies.
Bosses in the DLC,
like, this level of cognitive, like, dissonance and whatever else is just baffling.
Creative visuals. Mechanically, they're all the same as before, but harder. Let me detail my experience of learning every boss in Shadow of...
Yes! I feel like the existence of, like, Divine Beast Dancing Lion is in and of itself enough of a counter argument against anybody saying that the DLC lacks, like, creativity or originality. I don't know. What else is that like? Anywhere.
The Erd Tree. I walk up to the boss and incorrectly guess when to dodge because most attacks are delayed and
visually or mechanically.
Faster than human reaction time. Many hitboxes are big to punish incorrect dodge roll directions and bad positioning, so there's more trial and error with that as well.
I
After
mean,
getting hit one or two
okay.
times, I'm already near death because of the high damage. Now I can...
yeah, just sneak that one right by us. 1 to 2, right. Just pretend like that's not a big difference. That's just something you fix in text, right? Not worth re-recording. Not worth re-recording that whole section when you noticed it was actually double what you said.
1 or 2 times, I'm already near death because of high damage. Now I can run away and heal, but that...
To all the response videos, I always knew that I could have healed safely if I chose not to run here. You're missing the...
That will sometimes result in me getting hit.
Are we?
Or I can give up a charged heavy opening and watch the boss's posture bar heal while I heal, but since the posture bar is hidden, I have no idea how much progress I lost. Alternatively, I can get the posture break and heal after. I'll choose one or the other depending on how close I think I am to posture break. Before I get my heal, I'll just have to dodge every attack perfectly in a 1 HP dance with death. The high damage
yeah, that sounds fucking sick, bro.
Makes the process of memorizing delayed attacks take longer than it should. Then after anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, I beat the boss, or 11 hours if the boss's name is Radon.
Okay.
I think my...
Like, the only one that is, like, actually ridiculous in terms of numbers there is Radon with 11 hours. Like, 30 minutes to 2 hours? Wow. Again, are you okay? Are you gonna be alright, buddy?
Focus on healing and trial and error in the original video shifted the conversation onto difficulty when that was only about 60% of the problem. The bosses were certainly overly punishing and full of trial and error, but the bosses have always had some trial and error, so this is really just a logical extension of From's past game design trends. Is it not a bit of an overreaction for me to be so harsh towards the bosses when I didn't complain about trial and error?
Breaking smoothest recorded brain has been found. I still have yet to have like a single statement that that outmatches Theo saying, why does the boss respond to my roll if it doesn't know I'm gonna roll? Are there response videos? Did the text say videos or comments? He's said both, I think, in his walls of text thus far. Because there are other response, like Lupine also made a response to his DLC critique, I believe. I really don't know why that's happening. It's fucking annoying. Suck it, Anderson challenge run. Yo, oh my god, I love Lupine, dude. Yeah. Okay. There's this. This is the only one that I'm aware of other than mine, but
In Matthew Matosis's video, The
there's probably
Lost
more.
Soul Arts of Demon Souls, he said something to the effect that it's not fun for him when every boss is the same simple dodge hit challenge on repeat. Dancer of the Boreal Valley, if it wasn't in a game with so many similar dodge hit challenges. I think my enjoyment of the simple dodge hit Souls boss is higher than Matthew's, but it has been severely strained. The way Matthew felt about Dancer
Okay,
is
so
how
like
I feel about
again, just
Mesmer.
want to
If
say like
Mesmer
just play some other shit for a while then, like, and come back when you want to play this type of game again. Fuck, like again, it's just a this is it's fucking you're doing it to yourself.
was in a game that wasn't full of overly punishing bosses.
And it's like you love the base game. Why did you even make the In Defense of Elden Ring video if you had such fundamental problems with the way all of these games are designed? Like,
with tons of
since
delayed
DS3.
attacks, I would have appreciated
Yeah, this argument doesn't work if he didn't see the same thing in the base game. Like, it's just like he
him as a simple yet fun mid DLC high point. Instead, when I found Mesmer, I thought, here we go again, as I prepared to memorize a bunch of delayed attacks for an hour before the game became a little fun again. The funny thing about Matthew's video is that when I first saw it, I thought he was exaggerating the issues a bit, and I had legitimate counter-arguments. Sure, delayed attacks can feel a bit cheap, but in Dark Souls 3 it's
well, it's just like, okay, Feeble King is not the type of person who should vibe with that video. Like, I agree with what Matthew Matosis said in that video. I think he has a point, but I don't want them to reverse course. Like, I like the way they're doing things now, and Feeble King seemed to as well until the DLC came out. So it's just weird that he's like this is the turning point for you. Like, why? It's literally just a heightened version of the Elden Ring base game, if even that. I've seen some people say that it's like the same, basically. I don't think so. Personally, I think it is quite a bit harder, but
spam roll out and
it is basically just an extension of the same thing.
So that you can learn the trial and error within a single attempt, and most bosses weren't filled to the brim with their cheapest moves, although there were certainly some exceptions.
What? Pontiff? Okay.
Unfortunately, Fromsoft has taken all of my counter
Pontiff gets easier in Phase 2.
Against Matthew's video and thrown them into the garbage. Almost like a prophet, Matthew's video has only become more true over time. For me, Dark Souls 3
Well, yeah, because they've been focusing more on the aspects of design that he was criticizing in that video. Like, it's only a problem if you think that he's right to identify it as such, which I guess he does. But again, it's weird that the Elden Ring DLC is what convinced him before, like, if anything else didn't.
Great balance of trial and error, while Elden Ring increases the trial and error a great deal without increasing the depth of the mechanics in a meaningful way. To me, every Souls boss is starting to look like the same challenge wearing a different visual skin. The only meaningful difference
well, it is. That's the thing. It kind of is. I don't know how it took you this long to realize, considering it's been like that since like Bloodborne, but yeah, all right. Also, like, considering you specifically approach all the games in that exact way, all of them are like that for you. So again, it's weird that it just became too much. I'm thinking maybe, perhaps, just maybe, we have a skill issue again. But
the same dodge hit
we don't want to say that.
That Fromsoft is known for, but now in Elden Ring you have to die 35 times to learn the boss instead of 15. Is it more fun?
Oh shit, wow, fuck.
Are the same but harder? No, not to me. The trial and error was extra frustration standing in the way between me and the victory screen. Yet on a deeper level, I was getting bored of dodge hit Souls combat. Bored and frustrated.
Okay.
In my most positive Elden Ring video, I praised the game for adding depth in the form of new attacks that stack different amounts of posture damage. But even this extra depth is just trial and error in disguise.
I mean,
you memorize what attacks you are jumping heavy over, and memorize when you get charged heavy attacks off without getting hit after.
Okay, we need to stop, and I know that he's not going to, so it's pointless for me to say this, but we need to stop using the term trial and error like it's inherently negative, first of all. Secondly, like, because, okay, actually, sorry, let me go back to that point for a second, because like there's always going to be some level of trial and error involved in all of this, unless you want to go back to the old head argument again and say that everything should be reactable the first time you see it. So like, yeah, but also, I mean, it becomes less trial and error over time because you start to see patterns between different things, right? Like you start to see things that you're like, oh, I bet I could jump that because it's similar to this other thing that I jumped before, or I bet I could position around that because there's such a long delay on it, like Margit's overhead thing, or like a similar attack that this other thing did, and like it's not.
After.
Yeah.
You can also learn positioning openings where you do trial and error to see how good the boss's tracking is on every attack. I think a lot of FromSoft fans.
So like when he made the In Defense of Elden Ring video, he was sure that the positioning openings were deliberate. Now it's trial and error to see how good the tracking is. So now it's a bug that there's so many positioning openings. Okay, Feeble King.
Difficulty for depth. Just because I had to memorize a bunch of delayed attacks, that doesn't mean its core systems have much more depth than a Dark Souls 3 boss.
What? Nobody thinks that delayed attacks are like a system level difference of depth. Nobody's saying that. Okay. See, what Feeble King is actually doing here is actually kind of brilliant in that he's demonstrating how bad faith all of his critics are through reverse psychology by being even worse faith in responding to them. It's very clever.
All it means is that I did the dodge hit challenge while dying more. I might start to like this if there were systems in place to learn the bosses without trial and error, or the internet, like a revive system or something that signals an attack as jumpable. But now I'm back to talking about Sekiro.
Oh boy, and we always, all fucking roads lead to Sekiro with Shadow of the Erdtree.
Quick analysis of the dodge hit Dark Souls boss. Many bosses have different feels to their animation timings, or sometimes have well telegraphed positioning requirements, like with Mohg's Blood or the Demon Prince's Poison Trail. But I
want to make a prediction, and this could be entirely wrong. I wonder if the section of the video with him responding to Joseph Anderson is going to be the part that actually makes me insane, because it's going to be like the it's gonna be two fucking retards screaming at each other that they're retarded, and like they're both right, and I'm gonna be here sitting in the middle, like nobody listening to me, like, cause Joseph Anderson in his video is like, oh yeah, the DLC is great, and the base game doesn't have all these, or has all these problems that they fixed in the DLC, and then Feeble King is like, no, the base game is great, and the DLC though is like is too much, and it's like they're both wrong, but in opposite ways. Oh, okay.
Overall point is that these differences have been done many times already and are no longer enough to stop.
Yeah, it's gonna be this. This is what it's gonna be.
For getting bored when the only main change in the boss design is it's the same but harder. In other words, FromSoft has been relying on the same core combat system for over a decade now.
I mean, yeah, but like fucking like what is she? Okay.
New, in my opinion. I think I realized I made a bit of a mistake with my In Defense of Elden Ring boss design video when I played Metroid Dread after and thought Dread's bosses were infinitely more entertaining than Elden Ring bosses. In Dread, your first 3 attempts against a boss
didn't record footage of Metroid, so please you okay.
Impossible. Then you
couldn't just play it again real quick?
Making a positioning or missile use strategy, and after about 10 to 15 good attempts you
Bro, this is just like an extended way of saying that the problem is that it's harder. Like, what are you doing, Feeble King? Do you think people don't see what you're doing?
What once seemed to be impossible. In that way,
like literally the only perceptible difference between the two things is that this one took less time and less attempts and was easier overall. And like
Dread's bosses felt a lot like Dark Souls 1. I loved level 1 runs in Souls games because it forced me to think in a strategic way to overcome the challenge. Dodge hit wasn't always enough to win, and that was the fun part. I'd learn to get Smo stuck on a pillar while I 1v1 Ornstein, or I'd boss.
If you haven't played Dread, played it. I haven't played any Metroid, so I should probably get on that.
Monkey brain to overcome the challenge. Although Shadow of the Erd Tree was harder at a normal level than most Dark Souls 1 or 3 bosses are at level 1, I did not find this type
I love
of
Metroid. Yeah, I'd
improvement
probably
in
really like it too.
design.
I just haven't
Every
actually
boss felt so basic and
done
brain
it.
dead. I die a lot to the boss. I memorized delayed attack.
I know you can jump this. I just didn't have trouble. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Feeble King. You called this out as a streamer bait attack. That's how fucking frustrated you were with it. You thought they like made it to pander to Twitch.
Attacks and stream.
So yeah, this is nice, some nice revisionism, but we all know what actually happened.
I dodge good and win. Rinse and repeat. No critical thinking, just brute force memorization designed to eat up my time. I didn't write it in the script, but I just realized I probably do like learning base game Elden Ring bosses more because they require more.
To be fair, I haven't fully optimized the DLC bosses, but the tracking was usually so good that I don't think I'd be able to find many positioning openings. Well, you should try again because they're there.
Thinking openings. I still don't like the trial and error, but I think I dislike the simplicity of the DLC's bosses, while someone like Joe liked that. There is some fun in
I haven't fully optimized. Yeah, like,
boss design
no shit.
once
Wow.
you know all the timings,
Crazy.
But I still think the bosses are
Where have I heard this before? It's, yeah, I don't know. The video he made, how long ago was it at this point?
At its heart,
2 months ago? I don't know. It seems like he hasn't really put that much time into actually learning anything else.
Play a Souls game just for the combat rhythm challenges, I'd rather play Sekiro.
Okay, so do that then, man.
The game if I played at level 1, but I don't want to do another
I don't want to pick up every Scadutree blessing just to get one shot by most boss moves anyways. Then don't play the game, Feeble King. Then just stop. It's not for you. It is just not for you, straight up.
Especially not with this game. While I still think Elden Ring bosses are overly punishing for a game,
and it's like you shouldn't need 2 fucking long ass videos to just basically say this isn't my type of game anymore.
Much trial and error. I will admit a lot of my distaste for Shadow of the Erd Tree's boss design comes from burnout and a lack of innovation in the base mechanics.
I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna fucking kill myself, dude.
Error when it was only a little over half the issue, and I apologize for.
How do I know? How do I know everything about this man?
Realizing that sooner. You can separate my opinion into 2 bars. One is my interest in dodge hit combat, and another is the amount of trial and error deaths crammed into a boss encounter. My interest has moved down while the trial and error has moved up, resulting in me being bored and frustrated. When I find a boss like Midra that feels more
like trial and error is fun, man. I don't know. It's like part of what you do anyway. You're gonna be dying a bunch. Try stuff. Just try wacky stuff.
Souls 3,
it's fun.
Trial and error, I start to enjoy the game a good amount. Sure, his attacks are delayed, but they're all delayed evenly, so once you learn one timing, you learn almost all of them. It was fun, but not as much as when the combat system was new. I'd say the same thing applies to the open world. My interest in open world games have gone down as they've begun to dominate the games industry, while the emptiness and poor rewards in Shadow of the Erd open world
which thing?
Making
There are mix-ups in timing on Midra? Yeah, there are, but, you know, whatever. Him knowing that would require, like, understanding it, so.
Bored. If you were about to write a comment telling me that my boredom of Souls combat is my fault due to my unwillingness to use the tools in the game, please stop.
No, I don't think it's your fault necessarily.
You know, I don't like most
well, I think I do, actually, but I don't think that's why.
Build options like hit trading, using ranged attacks, summons, or shields. I don't get any rhythmic or strategic enjoyment from beating bosses in these ways. When it comes to the deflecting flask, I don't think a 5-minute Sekiro band-aid will make me like the bosses much more. I'll go through a bunch more trial and
band-aid. Didn't Joseph Anderson say it was a band-aid too? Wait, no, it was Democracy? I don't know. Maybe it was just Feeble King.
Punishing bosses that make it hard to heal and hard to learn the deflect timings. Then I will press the block button good and win. It'll be the same, but I press LB instead of O.
Dude, you're more than 10 minutes into the video. You can say shit. It's fine.
Positioning matters less.
My God.
If I want to play Sekiro, I do that instead and have more fun. If every
okay, so do it then, bro. Fuck.
To be blaming me for not trying every build option against every boss, then that will be
right.
annoying.
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
Please agree to disagree. As I've grown bored of Souls combat, the red flags I used to see as cute are now unbearable, kind of like the feeling you get before a divorce.
Okay.
One such issue is how they refuse to zoom out their camera against giant bosses in their action RPG game series. This is flat out unacceptable, and leads me to the broader question of why. Why is the camera bad? More than that,
Well,
why did
okay. So I don't think that people who say the camera is bad are necessarily wrong, but I do think they use the camera sometimes as part of the challenge of certain fights, and people don't really tend to get that, and they assume it's a problem. Like, I think the Lion Dancer is supposed to kind of fight the way that it does. Like, I think... Like, I'm not going to say the camera isn't bad, because FromSoft having a bad camera has been a thing for a long time, but, like, I think that they kind of take advantage of it in fights like the Lion Dancer, because when it backs you into a corner... I feel like it's doing something deliberate with the camera there, where it's like supposed to throw you off. We'll have to ask Saku if playing the Elden Ring DLC felt like getting divorced.
did Torrent become summonable in the Elden Beast fight after 2 years? Why does Radahn have a near undodgeable
This attack was patched to be easier to dodge during the making of this video. Yeah.
Why is Waterfowl after 2 years? Why does Radahn have a near undodgeable attack? Why is Waterfowl dance? What if I told you it's all connected in one giant conspiracy?
What is he making a joke?
Radahn, all the answers became
Oh
so
God, what is
blindingly
this?
obvious. Yes, the spirit of Miyazaki himself came down upon me and whispered gently into my ears, "I like it hard." I firmly believe that when Fromsoft
I feel
playtests their
unclean.
games with
Don't speak
different
to me in
builds,
that way, Feeble King. Every time you make a joke, it already makes me uncomfortable.
they keep track of death counts, and if the count is too low, they change the boss, because the game being rock hard is their top priority. I think they tested Elden Beast to be too easy with Torrent, so they deactivated him so that players would have to dodge more spells to reach him every time he flew away, making them more likely to die. Who cares if it's fun? After all, the final boss to our giant RPG has to be hard no matter the cost. It'd be the end of the world if someone beat Elden Ring and thought, "Hey, that was easy," and then they put in specific builds to eliminate all
Miyazaki
of
and
the
patches,
challenge
that's pretty
anyways,
funny.
so screw
Best
you
thing in the
for still
video so
trying to
far.
not play
Wow.
the meta. They reactivated Torrent because it's been 2 years and most people
I was
have
too busy
already
being viscerally disgusted by Feeble King's voice saying something sexual to me.
beaten
Sorry.
Elden Beast, so there's no reason to keep the encounter bad
Also, many people complained that the boss was bad.
forever. But that's just a theory. A game theory. After coming to this realization about Elden Beast, everything made sense. Why does the camera suck ass? Well, would zooming out the camera make big bosses easier? Why put effort into making the game easier when it can be hard instead? Why is Radahn's triple hit nigh undodgeable?
I feel like... I don't know, I feel like fixing the camera to the extent that people want them to would be a pretty big deal and require a lot of dev time.
Well,
I feel like just saying like they're just not doing it because they're like, well, that might make the game easier is like really stupid. I guess it was too much to hope the joke would retire along with Matt Pat, yeah.
I could dodge every attack, I might beat the boss after only a couple hours instead of 11. That would make the game awful. I would hate...
Dude. Why are they like this? They literally patched this as you could have just taken this out and you would have lost nothing.
that. Fromsoft has been adding
Oh my God.
difficulty to their games for a long time with things like the Iron Golem's oversized grab hitbox or most grab hitboxes in the entire series. And now
like, why are you guys so dedicated to taking L's? You could have so easily avoided this one.
on to the next level. And honestly, what I find more annoying than all of this is the delays. Every other attack is delayed. It's like Elden Ring
Would you like to have no stamina instead, my boy?
a parody of the worst parts Matthew Matosis pointed out in his
I don't know why I talked to him like I was Gandalf there, but...
However, all of my issues with the bosses are secondary to what might be the fatal flaw of Elden Ring, replayability. I loved Geometry Dash growing up. It was my favorite game to play during study hall when I was putting off doing homework. It's all about trial and error to memorize a level and execute it perfectly. The thing about geometry
Like, you don't... Feeble King, this was a big point in your In Defense of Elden Ring video. You don't have to do this shit perfectly, and you know that. I know that you know that. Fuck.
Just learning. It's also being able to replay any level at any time after achieving mastery.
Okay.
To me, execution is more fun than memorization.
Yes.
Like how acing a test is more entertaining than studying. I also think that Elden Ring bosses become more fun after the memorization period. However, in order to refight the bosses, I need to play split aggro co-op, which isn't a playstyle I enjoy. The only other option is to do a new game plus and ride torrent through all
Get a
the
mod.
fields, like
I mean,
a long loading screen in between every boss.
how do you ace a test? Feeble King? Yeah, like, I mean, it's just like these are particularly hard tests that you have to work harder to ace. I'm sorry that that's too much for you, but you have still failed to justify this on any level that can't be responded to with skill issue. Sorry.
From the base game,
I know that was like the whole reason you made this hour-long justification of your bullshit, but I have a feeling the next 30 minutes aren't going to do it either.
Jester of Zeus had a good display of the problem where he erases every part of the map that's too out of the way for a casual New Game Plus playthrough where you're just playing to fight the bosses. He ended up with only Mesmer and Bale, which I find to be a bit too exaggerated.
Okay.
However, I think there are many bosses that many players will skip on casual repeat playthroughs. To fight Midra, you have to enter a coffin in Shadowkeep, run across a bunch of empty fields, do a long mini dungeon, then walk across the Abyssal Woods because you can't summon Torrent before being allowed to do Midra's Maid's Legacy.
It's like they want people to experience like many different aspects of the game, you know? Like they don't really want people to just rush through the bosses on their second playthrough. And it's always been that way. And you can get around it with mods, like always. And that's fine. I think it's good, actually, that they design the games that way. As much as I would enjoy being able to just have a boss rush, like, I think it's fine that it's like this. I don't know. Now tell me what you have to do to get to Quelaag. Yeah, another good point. You know.
And then you can fight Midra. To fight Matir, you have to do a whole ass quest line. Your Trescent Knight is very out of the way and you have to go through a bunch of empty space to reach his dungeon, although it's not as bad as the previously mentioned bosses. What I'm trying to say is that Elden Ring bosses become more fun on repeat playthroughs after memorizing their moveset, but the game itself is the antithesis of replayable. It's even worse if you're like me and you prefer...
I disagree. Everybody says this, and it's just not true to my mind, because you can really take a very focused path through both the base game and the DLC and get through it pretty quickly, all things considered, and see just the stuff you want to see, with very few exceptions. If you're doing a fresh game, you're going to have to spend some time upgrading your weapons and stuff, and that can be annoying, but like that's the extent of the hassle you're going to have, pretty much.
Replaying the game with a new character.
And then, yeah, you're going to have to fight some stuff that you didn't like again. Sorry, I never replayed Dark Souls and had to do the Bed of Chaos again. Does everybody just forget that like the unpleasant parts of all the games are part of them when you replay them? I guess. Yeah. No, they don't forget. They just ignore that when it's inconvenient. Prefer playing Souls games with new characters because I like the feeling of a weak character becoming strong. Okay. Well, then you're going to have to fucking compromise somewhere. You can't always get what you want, you fucking child. Jesus Christ.
To get all the upgrade materials.
And also, like, if you're really going to be that insistent, then get mods. Fuck.
Flaw is worse in the DLC. It's still something
for the record, Distortion ran a rune level 1 DLC only weapons armor speedrun bounty. It took an hour and 15 minutes for the entire thing. I'm not surprised.
Shouldn't have brushed over in my In Defense of Elden Ring video. The weird thing about all of this is how easy the fix is. Just let us refight bosses at checkpoints like in Sekiro.
Yeah, that would be good. I would like that. That would be nice.
To discuss
but it's really not that big of a fucking deal. It's not like that. It's fine. They've always been this way. Okay, this is the part of the video that I was most interested in. I glazed Joe for over a minute straight. Wow, holy shit, I can't believe it.
On the DLC.
Oh my god. Wait, was that was the Joseph Anderson meme one, right?
Joseph Anderson's video on the DLC.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to sound a bit negative towards Joe in a moment, so let me state that I like Joseph Anderson a lot. He is my main inspiration.
Red flag.
behind me becoming a YouTuber in the first place. There's definitely a chance that if there's no
Everything
Joseph
makes sense
Anderson
now.
channel, there is no Feeble King. Although some people are like, get rid of both of them.
Yes, get
I've
it,
seen
get him out.
almost every video Joe's made, many more than once, and back when he made regular content, I considered
This is
him to be
pathetic.
my favorite YouTuber. A lot of Fromsoft fans are slowly starting to realize why they've always hated me right about now. I anticipate a video that shall not be named more
You
than
know, Feeble King, I didn't always hate you.
any
I actually used to think you were really cool.
other major movie coming out over the next couple of years, which is a compliment.
I almost agree with him for a different reason. I will almost certainly have fewer playthroughs of Elden Ring than DS3. However, if compared to my hour, Elden Ring will probably win. I don't think that aids his point, but I almost felt that Pulse... Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's not... It's not like a completely invalid point. It's just like, I don't care about it particularly.
Meant to and an insult at how boring Hollywood has become with the millionth Marvel movie. I think Joe has a few blind spots, but then again, don't we all? To continue glazing Joe...
To put it lightly, Feeble King, yes. Yes.
A lot of his points in the DLC video, primarily with his criticisms of the exploration and poor rewards. I am more harsh towards these issues since they were the largest reason I didn't enjoy the DLC, while they didn't seem to ruin the experience for Joe. Let's get into my main issue.
Yelling at
Joe's
people, I can't
video.
wait. Well,
Joe's
listen, they should be less fucking stupid publicly, and then it wouldn't
says
be
that
a
he
thing.
likes the bosses in the DLC, although his negative opinions on most base game bosses has remained unchanged. When
You know, like...
explaining why the base game
It is
bosses
exactly
are too hard to learn,
that image
he
that
uses
Radius
an overly
sent.
hyperbolic example of how complex the boss openings are.
If you look at the boss's left nostril a quarter of a second before the attack comes out, you clearly see an upward twitch, and that's your cue to roll. If it's the right nostril, though, then you need to do a jump.
Felt my blood pressure raise when I remembered that Joseph Anderson is still using Godric as an example of unacceptable, like, response times for tells.
attack, and then you get a punish. So make sure you keep the boss's nose on the screen at all times. Or, during this frenzy of 15 attacks in a row, there are 2 player-shaped holes under these swings that you can ballerina pose through, and another that you have to hit the left stick on to do a duck in order to get some free hits in if your weapon swing is sub 1 second. Charge heavy afterward for a free stagger. And yeah, I'm exaggerating, you know, just a little bit for fun.
I know this is meant as a joke, but he says it isn't far from the truth when it's pretty far away. In reality, most boss tells and openings are fairly simple.
This is going to be the, like, one part of the video that I agree with, right?
Right during Malekith's combo
Okay,
to
but, like, we have to remember he's going to pretend the DLC isn't like this in a minute, so...
avoid the cyclone attack and get an opening. Beast Clergyman lifts his arm for a set amount of time before damage comes out. Circle Margit during...
Oh god, again, it never stops. I'd say Bale's leg movement before the roar is more hidden than almost all attack tells in the base game. If you want more examples of the simple yet slightly hidden attack... what? Slightly hidden base game boss openings, then watch my indefensive. No, don't watch his videos.
Heavy. It's not extremely complicated, just a little bit hidden. I said in the beginning of my indefensive Elden Ring boss design video that many bosses aren't designed for anyone except challenge runners to fully understand.
Yeah, that's stupid. That's a stupid thing to say.
And I have a feeling that Joe may have watched the beginning of my video and then stopped before he got into the specifics of why I said that.
I bet that hurts.
The reason I said that isn't because they
Hope
all
it does.
require speedrunner tier manipulation tricks to learn. Instead, it's because of all of the trial and error deaths you have to go through to learn what ends up being a fairly simple fight. There are some exceptions like Melania, but when it comes to most bosses, they aren't super complex, which is precisely why I was so upset at how terrible Fromsoft was at teaching the boss mechanics. Many more people
I don't think they were.
end up
We've talked
enjoying
about this
base game
before, but I think that he's wrong to say that they were terrible at teaching them. I just think he is maybe bad at learning, because, like, based on his feelings on the DLC. Because, yeah, Margit, I think, has some very deliberate lessons that he wants to teach you. There's 2 responses that Margit has to you getting behind him. One of them is the tail swipe, which you can jump over, which is a new mechanic, and it seems deliberately designed to give you a jump attack opening if you're playing melee. He poise breaks in like 3 hits from a like medium heavy weapon. Yeah, I don't know. Got a lot of delayed attacks that you can position out of really easily.
Elden Ring boss design.
And also, like, the bosses are not going to teach you really focused specific lessons because there's so many different ways to play Elden Ring. But the lessons are all there if you're willing to engage with the boss fight enough.
If Fromsoft cut down on the trial and error and taught the different types of openings. My largest issue with the base game and DLC bosses is the same, all of the trial and error. Although the DLC bosses have better tracking and less positioning openings, they still have a similar amount of trial and error to learn. Joe is convinced that the base game...
The amount of time it took me to learn base game bosses after I started circling their attacks is about the same amount of time it took me to learn, memorize the DLC bosses' delayed attacks. Okay.
Bosses must take way longer.
Is this supposed to support his point that the DLC is different in a negative way?
To learn the DLC bosses when that wasn't true in my experience. Although my complaints may sound nitpicky,
trial and error equals bad, right? Of course. Joe gets a lot of Malekith's openings here, but then uses this footage when he says the bosses aren't worth the time investment. Maybe he did learn some bosses, but thought it took too long and decided to not explain what specific moves are too hard to figure out.
With how Joe presents his argument about the base.
How is he saying all of this, but he doesn't understand that, like, you could basically just flip the same argument on him about the DLC?
Bosses. Joe has built his reputation as a critic by using evidence to back up his opinions. One piece of boss
I guess you could call it that.
To explain why he dislikes many base game Elden Ring bosses. And what if I told you that his only piece of boss evidence is incorrect, as outlined in my indefensive
I would not be
Elden Ring
slightly
video
surprised.
that came out over a year ago. Joe says that nothing you can do against waterfowl dance up close except to do a speedrunner to your dodge roll or use a pot. And if he would have seen my video to the end, he would know that that's not true. You can just run backwards after every hit and you'll get
Bro,
away
his Darkest
before it
Dungeon video got me
reaches you.
mauling.
And although I didn't do
Did
it
you
in
watch
my
it on
video,
stream?
If you jump away instead of rolling, it'll be easier to
Because I'll watch the
dodge.
VOD.
You do have to stagger her to have
I'm
enough
now
time to
very invested in Joseph Anderson hate, so...
get away, which means you can't go for 2 hits ever. But if you were playing for posture break, you
Chat
usually
hates
would go
Darkest
for
Dungeon.
1
Really?
big hit
That sucks.
instead of 2 small ones anyways. I will say that waterfowl is still hard to deal with even with my method of dodging it. However, it doesn't really matter because it's just 1 attack.
Yes.
Joe shouldn't say that he dislikes many Elden Ring bosses with only 1 piece of evidence. To be fair, Joe is in a bit of a sticky situation, since he knows he dislikes the bosses, but doesn't want to cite many moves because it'll be followed up by people telling him the solution and that he's wrong for disliking
Maybe
it.
he should
A good
stop fucking making videos about the games then.
Analogy would be a Zelda puzzle. There are some very simple Zelda puzzles that have stumped me for hours, yet after finding the solution, I tend to blame myself.
Oh, this might not be the best comparison since most Zelda puzzles are like why is every single point that you make paired with a wall of text that undercuts it? Why do you like this?
Rather than the game. Of course, Zelda puzzles don't involve tons of trial and error deaths while you input your solution, so it's easier for me to blame myself, but Joe seems to not mind the trial and error since he likes the DLC, leading me to believe that Joe might blame himself rather than the game if he used a guide to learn the solutions. I can't know this for certain because it doesn't seem like he ever
I'm like, what?
or read any guides. Aside from that 1 piece of boss evidence, everything he cites has nothing to do with the bosses. Joe shows how Elden Ring is unfinished in places, and then makes an argument that because so many aspects are unfinished, that means that challenge runners may have not found the intended way to fight bosses, but instead used ingenuity to find exploits. Joe is a smart guy who's good at presenting arguments. Unfortunately, he's wrong. Boss tells like Beast Clear.
Don't believe it's possible for almost every boss to have such an amazing flow state once mastered if most openings were unintentional. The DLC bosses are the same way, Feeble King. They're the same way. Oh, they're the same way.
Or bosses who are easily circleable during certain attacks are completely intentional and not all that hard to discover. When I learn an Elden Ring boss, I don't usually think, that was impossible, how could I ever learn that? Instead I think, I can't believe I didn't see that before. I think if I wasn't always distracted from dying in 3 to 4 hits, I would have noticed it earlier. Challenge runners...
I think that's the point, maybe. of FromSoft and their design of games. You know, like present something that seems initially impossible. I mean, he's saying they're doing it in like a different way because he's saying it didn't feel impossible. It felt like, oh, I can't believe I didn't see this before. But like I think he's doing distinction without a difference again. Like
completely intentional and not all that hard to discover. When I learn an Elden Ring boss, I don't usually think, that was impossible, how could I ever learn that? Instead, I think, I can't believe I didn't see that before. I think if I wasn't always distracted
it's like
from dying...
You're describing like the progression of feelings that you have almost, or that you're supposed to anyway. Okay.
In 3 or 4 hits, I would have noticed it earlier. Challenge runners finding what seems like exploits to avoid unfair moves like waterfowl dance up close or Radahn's triple slash are the exception, not the rule. And you can't use 1 or 2 pieces of evidence to make a case against all endgame bosses.
Yes.
I'm defending Elden Ring so hard right now that I might have to change the video title or something. Shadow of the Erd Tree, a misunderstood masterpiece. That's what all the comments said that the video would be called. Joe also says that the DLC bosses being simpler is proof that
that is the most emotion I've ever heard this man express. Can we get that again, actually? Like, put some of that tone into your jokes, and maybe they'd be less off-putting.
Slash are the exception, not the rule. And you can't use 1 or 2 pieces of evidence to make a case against all endgame bosses. I'm defending Elden Ring so hard right now that I might have to change the video's title or something.
Like, this is a human reaction to having a feeling.
Shadow of the Erd Tree, a misunderstood masterpiece. That's what
wow.
all the comments said that the video would be called. Joe also says that the DLC bosses being simpler is proof that some base game boss openings were unintentional. He says that the DLC is supposed to be a step up in complexity, so it doesn't make sense why they're more simple, but I couldn't disagree with him more. The simplicity of their design is only proof that Fromsoft saw Joe and a bunch of other YouTubers complain that the bosses had no openings, so they dumbed down the design a bit in the DLC, and in order to keep up the difficulty, they increased delayed it.
You think, like... Okay.
Attacks and the damage those delays did. Simple difficulty that I don't find particularly engaging. My ending point on...
You think like Joseph Anderson and other people who made similar criticisms are responsible for the way the DLC is? Really? Like, you think YouTubers have that much pull in FromSoft, like the actual fucking game design studio? Really? I mean, he does, because he said that the Rolana thing was like a streamer bait attack. So I guess he really does think that lowly of them.
Trial and error, he doesn't have to be as skilled as a Mario 64 speedrunner to learn base game Elden Ring bosses. And there's probably just a few hidden in plain sight boss tells that he isn't getting. I'm not trying to be mean about it. I missed some things in plain sight before, like in my
wow,
video.
yeah.
I'm just pointing it out. I know that some people in the comments will say that I'm coping about Joe's video just because he disagreed with me, when that's true. I'm just trying to give him helpful criticism, and if he disagrees with me, or even if he ends up hating me, I hope that fuels the fire inside of his heart to get him to make the Witcher 3
this is so cringe.
Overall, I enjoyed Joe's video about Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Like, I know that one was like an ironic bit, but like...
can enjoy
it just doesn't really
that contains opinions that I disagree with. So
Thursday night football on Prime.
Again, I have to ask, do people really need to hear Joseph Anderson's opinion about The Witcher 3 that badly? Like, the game has been out for like more than a decade at this point, hasn't it?
Listening to my criticisms of Joe's video thinking that I did the same thing as him. Do I not also have a giant blind spot preventing me from loving Shadow of the Erd Tree's boss design when I literally wrote a video titled In Defense of Elden Ring Boss Design? Or perhaps I am a money-hungry grifter goblin. I will admit, seeing all the comments claiming that I'm going to make an In Defense of Shadow of the Erd Tree video for more money was quite funny. It even tempted me into making a joke script that I might release one day because I think it's the funniest thing I've ever written. However, my actual opinion will
That's not a
remain
high bar,
unchanged.
but...
To discredit the grifter allegations, let's just think about it for a second. If I was lying for views, why would I be so intensely negative? Logically, that would alienate my viewers, many of whom are Fromsoft fans, making them less likely to rewatch my older Fromsoft videos, and it could even permanently ruin my fan base and reputation. Even if I was being negative, shouldn't I be the nice type of negative?
Okay. I mean, like, since we're just, like, throwing out these hypotheticals, like, here's a justification, like, why would I do this if that? Well, here's a reason. A lot of the community was already being negative on the DLC. Like, that was actually a lot of the first impressions were, like, people being really put off by how hard it was. You made your video, like, pretty soon after it came out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you were necessarily doing it deliberately. It's kind of like the person, actually, interestingly enough, the person said in my video who commented on it. I don't know that you're doing it deliberately, Feeble King. I don't know that you're a grifter. I think you're just really fucking stupid. I think that's the main problem. I think you have the incredible ability to gaslight yourself into thinking that, like, whatever opinion excites you the most is also the true one. Like, how did this person put it? He really has an incredible ability to convince himself that whatever take will create the most drama and thus farm the most engagement to drive his ad revenue is his true and honest opinion. It's his responsibility as an enlightening being to expose everyone else's hacks or prioritize the truth or not. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what we're on to here in a little bit. I don't think you're necessarily doing it on purpose. I think that you just, like, that sequence of events kind of played naturally into your ego response to the DLC, basically.
Like, oh my god, guys, I think it's like a 10 out of 10, but it just has a few issues, and I'm just gonna talk about them, guys. I could do that, but I didn't do that.
Because, like, that's, like, what everybody was saying about it who was positive on the game. Obviously, it would farm a lot more engagement to say something different that is going to cause controversy. Like, is he really going to pretend that, like, none of us have been on the internet before? Obviously, like, hot takes that go against the grain, if that was even what this was, because, again, everybody was being negative on the DLC at the time. They get a lot of attention. Like, does he think we were stupid?
Even though that would have been more intelligent.
Yes, he
I could
does.
have also instead gotten slightly less views glazing the game, but still a lot since this is mostly a FromSoft channel, and I wouldn't have risked losing my reputation or losing any fans. In actuality, I think this video hurt the channel in the long run.
Good.
I made it because I'm an honest guy and I didn't like the DLC. There isn't much more to it. Back to the topic of my In Defense of Elden Ring boss design video, let me say that I don't think In Defense of needs to mean that I am wholly in love with what I am defending.
Yeah, no shit.
All it means is that I'm presenting some sort of defense that is more positive than what I and many others have put out previously, which is exactly what that video is.
That's
I think a lot of
holy fuck, Feeble King.
People who watch my videos
That's
don't
crazy.
really listen to me when I speak. They see a flashy thumbnail, watch 5 minutes, dislike, and leave. The first 20 minutes of my In Defense of Elden Ring video is me criticizing the bosses for being too hard to learn and having too much trial and error. Sure, I found new ways to enjoy and defend the boss design, but I clearly did not enjoy learning the bosses. This would mean that my negative opinion of the bosses from the base game to the DLC is logically consistent.
I am feeling compelled to watch his In Defensive video after this one, because it seems like he's really trying to have his cake and eat it too, and it would just be interesting to see how well his vision of that video in this video squares with its actual content.
I disliked learning them both times. I only made the In Defense of Elden Ring boss design video to correct misinformation spread by me and other YouTubers, and to show people that they can have fun with the bosses as rhythm challenges despite the learning process being boring.
Okay.
Shadow of the Erdtree repeats the same central mistake from the base game's boss design of having too much trial and error, while offering what I see as much worse exploration and less interesting major dungeons, so I will never make a long-form video essay defending it. Some people will call me a grifter who constantly changes his opinions to get views, despite the fact that I've never once changed my overall opinion on any game I've ever covered on the channel.
Okay.
Sure, I will change my mind about specific aspects of a game, or what best solves an issue in a game, but the overall opinion has always stayed the same. The only opinion I changed on Elden Ring was realizing that the endgame bosses can be fun in challenge runs once mastered, and even then I blamed the game for not teaching it to me in a clearer way with less trial and error.
I just
the only
like
other thing people
yeah. I don't know.
could perceive as an opinion switch was when I said Dark Souls 2 is a good game after hating on it. However, this is not an opinion
What? I didn't know that.
switch because Dark Souls 2 Vanilla is not Scholar of the First Sin. I still hate Scholar of the First Sin.
Oh, I've never played
never
Vanilla,
changed my
so
mind on Dark Souls 2. I simply played a different version of the game that I prefer.
this is a just a very long time to dedicate to proving that you're not a grifter when you most people would just say it, like deny it and move on, you know.
But Feeble Grift.
I don't think that he is. I just think that like he gets weirdly fixated on certain things that rub him the wrong way
I hear
sometimes.
You say, why did you go from liking Elden Ring to disliking it? Is it not to clout chase for views? Well, base game Elden Ring is not the same content pack.
I just think he's
Shadow of
dumb.
the
Yeah,
Erdtree.
no, he is
They're
just
like
dumb.
two separate
Like,
games stuck together. Some of the strengths and weaknesses are the same, and some of them are not.
yeah, actually, that's a good point. Is like sometimes when you're dumb enough, it's hard to tell that you're not a grifter.
Your base game Elden Ring
Because it
can
just
be a
lines up too
masterpiece.
conveniently.
This is partially because levels mattered, so every path had good rewards for my build, but it's more than that. I think Joe detailed it well when he explained how Shadow of the Erdtree's best moments of exploration are inferior to the wonder of the base game. In the base game, there were genuinely amazing sections that blew me away, like the stars moving after Radahn's death to reveal a crater in the earth that...
It's like this is the one thing that everybody mentions about the world state changing in the base game and the base game's world being cooler. Is because it's all they have, of course, but like, I don't know. There are amazing moments of exploration in the DLC too. Like the lead up to Bale was like unforgettable. That's one of the, like some of the most fun hours I've had in gaming.
A series of underground interconnected cities, or climbing Mount Gelmir to find the boss at the top of the volcano.
This boss is very cool. I saw it for the first time here. It'll be less cool if you found it in the cave first.
And then in Volcano
Yeah,
Manor,
okay.
you find an evil faction that you can infiltrate that leads to a big legacy dungeon. And at the end, there's a unique boss
It's
with
like-
a giant blade that
okay.
can cut through the wind. There's more sections but these were some of the better ones. They felt new and creative, like nothing I'd seen before.
What?
Meanwhile, Shadow of the Erdtree's best moments all have a but actually attached to it. You find a beautiful blue coast, but actually it's just a bunch of empty space with reskinned bosses from the base game and one short legacy dungeon at the end.
Yeah.
You find the hidden entrance to the northern plateau, but actually it's just empty space with a quest location and some reskinned overworld bosses. You find a hidden forest.
They're not reskinned. I went on about this at length in my other video responding to him. Let's move on.
At the bottom
They're just
of the
reused.
deepest, darkest catacombs. But actually, the forest is an empty pit with forced stealth and reskinned rat enemies separating you from the only good content here. It'd be better if the Abyssal Woods didn't exist at all and you found a straight shot to Midra's Maints at the bottom of the dungeon. There aren't any moments of amazing exploration in Shadow of the Erdtree that didn't have some
Alright.
draw. There's some
Speak
parts
for
of the base
yourself.
game that knocked it out of the park in every way, in terms of creativity and exploration and enemy variety and boss.
Okay, the enemy variety and boss design was always a little scuffed in some places, but the base game still did these. But yeah, because it was a whole game and not just a DLC. Jesus Christ.
Design. They just knocked it out of the park. And also you were rewarded with levels when levels still
Fuck off. He called them reskinned again. Yep, he just keeps doing it. He'll never stop.
mattered. So on top of all
Oh my god. Jesus fucking Christ, Feeble King. The base game has better rewards, better level design, better enemy variety, better or more original ideas, is more dense with content. I say the level design is basically unchanged. It's like the same. Has an early game where boss damage isn't extremely overtuned. It is post-endgame DLC. There is no early game. If you think there is an early game to Shadow of the Erdtree, you don't understand it. I don't like it when every major boss is an overtuned endgame event for 40 to 50 hours straight. both games, then okay. Then you never have to play this again, Feeble King. It's a good thing video games are optional. Fuck.
This other stuff, you actually were getting stronger for completing all of the content.
Nothing cool about the hole in the southern end of Cerulean Coast going on underwater, or creative about the scary forest that Torrent refuses to appear in. No, of course not, you know?
Was also very, very nice.
Yeah, like can we talk about like the interesting thing that is like giving you a mount in one of these games and then taking it away from you for an entire section? And like the palpable difference in gameplay that made? That was really fucking cool, wasn't it? Oh, I guess not.
This section, I think it's fine if you change your mind on something. I just don't do it much. I have never once changed my overall opinion on a single game I've played in the channel's history. I should also talk about my title for the last critique. Fromsoft's worst DLC yet.
Okay.
Personally, I can't think of Fromsoft DLC packs as separate when I played them all in a row, so I was comparing the DLC by game when I said that. Due to Shadow of the Erdtree being around 3 DLCs in one, I thought most people would assume this, but it seems like many were
I mean, I did assume that, but like, it's still a batshit insane thing to say, even if you do.
Clarifying it in this video. Many people were upset specifically that I thought Dark Souls 2 DLC
like, this isn't the problem, Feeble King. It's yet again, you're like strawmanning. You're pretending that you're okay.
Better than Shadow of the Erdtree. I said in the description of my last video that I preferred it slightly when you skip the co-op bosses, which is easy to do, since even though those boss runs are terrible, it's not like they're blocking any good content. They're just copy-pasted bosses.
Oh, they're not reskinned? That one actually is, though. The Smelter Demon actually is reskinned. That's like the one time. Oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself. Holy fucking shit. Fuck whatever game From Software is working on next. Their next project needs to be a fucking lexicon. So we can all get on board and use the same terms for the same things.
Alone whose boss run is indefensible. It's also worth noting that Dark Souls 2 DLC is some of the best parts of that game. It has some great level design, many creative ideas,
but that's not saying much, so
bosses, good enemy variety, and doesn't have a bunch of empty fields slowing down the gameplay.
No, what it has instead is fields jam-packed full of bullshit. Oh, I guess that's better.
Preferring Dark Souls 2 DLC to Shadow of the Erdtree is as insane of a take as many were making it out to be, especially if you don't enjoy mostly empty open-world games. And to clear up another thing, worst DLC yet does not mean terrible. I don't think Fromsoft has ever made a terrible DLC.
Okay, but like, you knew that people were going to think that when you made the title, Feeble King. You did this to yourself. You created all of these misunderstandings.
Of course, regardless of this all being true, it won't make
you created the need for this justification. You're gonna blame people for like not listening to you, but like
Soft fans any less mad at me, which brings me to my next.
But like literally the only positive thing you had to say was about the visuals, which like yeah, everybody thinks it looks good. Jesus fucking Christ.
My problems with the Fromsoft community. I have made content about Fromsoft, Zelda, Persona, Anime, Capcom, Bethesda, and God of War.
Okay.
And hands down, no contest, Fromsoft has the worst community.
Okay.
And Zelda was just a bunch of 12-year-olds screaming at me for not liking Tears of the Kingdom, and Fromsoft is still worse. I think my main issue with the community is this. I will make a statement, and a Fromsoft fan will point out that there is more to the conversation, therefore I am wrong. It is very annoying. Yes, the games are obscure, but did it ever occur to you that I leave information out of my videos because I think it's boring and I want the video to have good pacing, unlike this one? One example would be Trina. I pointed out in my critique that
the consequence of that is the problem that you're now having, Feeble King. I mean, I guess I do, to be fair, like I kind of have the same problem in that like it would be difficult for me to make anything that I feel like is a comprehensive critique of any of these games, which is why I don't. I wanted to do that at a certain point, but like I feel like if anything, a better body of work would just be my streams of the games, because like you can see me getting better at it in real time. Shut the fuck up, I'm sacrificing accuracy for pacing, yeah. I could make my videos good, but then nobody would watch them, basically.
Many people called intentionally misleading for making this statement, since the real reward is Saint Trina's quest line. I left this out of my critique because I didn't want to waste time talking about a side quest that I found boring, but this made many people upset, so let's talk about it. You die to Trina's poison 4 times, each death
Oh my
forcing you to
god.
sit-
Why are you like this? Why the
So
fuck are
let's
you
talk
like this?
about
I
it.
hate you so much,
died to
Feeble
Trina's
King.
poison 4
6 times if you want to fully complete the quest. 4 times if you want to complete only TLDW's quest. Okay.
times, each death forcing you to sit.
My loading screen time wasn't too bad. The worst parts were how long it took to consume Trina's poison or slow dialogue. Why, like, are you guys like actual children? It's not that big of a deal. You don't even have to do it, first of all, and like it's just.
Sit through the long death load screens. Then you talk to.
Oh no, I had to wait for something. I experienced delayed gratification and I couldn't fucking handle it because.
Be their name, get them to spawn by Trina, then talk to her more, murder her, and get a poison ring that.
It's a sleep talisman that's useless for most builds, not a poison ring that's useless for most builds. My mistake. Right, that was the part that people were going to take issue with.
That will be useless for most builds. Great. Almost like every
Oh
other
my fucking god. You can revisit St. Trina after beating Radon to get a headpiece with bad defense stats that boosts up FP 5%. This reward is useless for most builds. That's literally every single item in the game, Feeble King. Holy fucking shit. Oh, except for like fucking rune arcs and flasks. Also, I know St. Trina's quest might be interesting to lore enthusiasts because aren't you a lore enthusiast, you fuck? I can't.
reward in the entire DLC. The quest was a boring waste of my time that made me not want to do any more side quests. In comparison to a Dark Souls 1 side quest like Solaire, that illustrates undying.
The only quest is overlapping themes with Solaris. It's similar but goes by so quickly that it made me feel nothing. Solaris' Descent into Madness is the proper build-up.
Faith in the face of
Her connection to Mikola, she's literally Mikola. That was part of him that he cast aside, yeah. Well,
ultimate death and the eventual despair that comes with it when you live a life of denial. This side quest is terrible. However, to be fair, the side quests in Dark Souls 1 had the advantage of being new. It was surprising when Solaire lost all hope and died, but it's not interesting when the 50th Fromsoft NPC storyline ends with them going
I mean,
crazy
it
and
doesn't though, because then he helps you fight. You know?
dying. Things are only creative when they're still new.
Okay.
To all the people who remain unconvinced and think I left out Saint Trina to pull one over on the audience, let me ask you what's more likely. Could I be a shifty politician who makes things
You can
up for
save
views
Solaire? You can, yeah.
in the shadows? Or
Hang on.
perhaps out Saint when they're still new? To all the people who remain unconvinced and think I left out Saint Trina to pull one over on the audience, let me ask you what's more likely. Could I be a shifty politician who makes things up for views in the
Yes.
shadows? Or perhaps the quest was underwhelming and didn't lead to a good extrinsic reward, and I didn't want to slow down the video explaining a whole ass side quest chain. Maybe I thought that anyone who completed the quest already knew that the extrinsic reward was useless for most builds, which relates to my biggest issue with the DLC, the terrible
He says extrinsic reward one more time, I know. I think maybe the issue that Feeble King is going to have with my criticism, or anyone who makes similar criticisms of him, is that like he's going to assume that we're reading a lot of maliciousness into what he's doing, when the actual thing I'm reading is just like pure unadulterated stupidity. I don't think that he left Saint Trina out to like pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I just think that he knew on some subconscious level that including it would make his point weaker, so he didn't. I don't think it was malicious. I think it was just like convenient to not. I don't know. I don't think he's like a demon. I just think he's a moron.
rewards, and because of that, I didn't feel the need to break down every little piece of evidence that supports my case. Let me ask you another question. Why would I intentionally withhold information that supports my main argument of bad extrinsic rewards? Maybe I'm
'cause
trying
it
to keep up the
doesn't.
pacing of the video, and I
Maybe.
don't want to talk about things I find boring. Or, what if I'm an evil grifter sent from outer space to convince the people of Earth that Fromsoft fell off? That federal hearing
He
about
saw Joseph Anderson do that ironic bit at the beginning of his video, and he's like, let me get a little bit of that. But he's Feeble King, so it's even
the
worse.
aliens? That was about me. I'll try to do better in the future to predict what unmentioned details will cause Fromsoft fans to be angry in the comments.
It's
but
not
I have to say that this
problem.
isn't a problem with any other community on the internet. Never have I been insulted by someone who disagrees with me for leaving out information that supports my case. My Bloodborne video is full of people correcting the way that I pronounce Gascon, and they're all wrong. An NPC calls him Gascon in-game.
What?
You must have killed Gascoigne as well, then.
His name isn't Gascoigne or
That
any other way.
that sounds like a British accent mushmouth thing to me, sir.
Gascon, and they're all wrong. An NPC calls him Gascon in-game.
You must have killed Gascoigne as well.
Gascon? I don't know. I could see that being actually pronounced Gascoigne, and this is just like some Britbonger shit.
Then.
His name isn't Gascoigne or any other way of saying this last name. Even after leaving evidence of me being correct in the pinned comment, I still get comments about his last name. It's like the moment Fromsoft fans decide they're right about something, they're right, and nothing can convince them.
I hear coin. Yeah, I hear it too. It's hard. It's like ambiguous. It's a little tough to tell, but why would there be an I there is my question.
Some of you might be writing a comment right now saying something like, so you hate it when the comments nitpick you, but then you go ahead and nitpick Joe's video. That's a
No one's gonna say that.
double standard, you hypocrite. So let me state right now that I am fine with
This video is like half shadowboxing and half brain leakage out of his
receiving
ears.
good criticism on important things that I get wrong when it's delivered in a non-toxic way. Similar to how I analyzed Joe's video. I was perfectly fine with the non-toxic comments pointing out the bigger issues on my Sekiro
Right.
critique, although I've yet to make a third video correcting the problems in the first two because of how toxic so much of the community is. The
Okay.
issue with many comments on my Shadow of the Erdtree critique is that they are exaggerated nitpicks delivered in an overly dramatic and toxic way. Some people would say this is a perfect description for all of my videos. But
No.
if we really think about it, me saying that Shadow of the Erdtree has the second worst rewards of any open world game I've played isn't a nitpick. It's
It's
just
not.
a strong and to me important opinion.
Did anyone?
Looking at
I didn't. I didn't like see. I didn't look at the comment section of his video very much, but I don't think anyone thought he was nitpicking. I don't think that was anybody's problem with what he said. So he doesn't care about meeting a new character and has no connection to the NPC whose side quest is connected to it. Got it. So we're back to it doesn't improve my build, so I don't care. Fine. Then I'm back to must suck to suck because that shit was awesome. Yeah, like it's. I don't fucking know. He had to wait too long for the thing to happen, so it's bad.
comments, even if
Like an actual child. Like again, I was right to say this before, but I should treat these people like fucking children because that's how they act.
right, and Saint Trina had the best side quest and best reward in the entire game. It's only one side quest, and me not mentioning it doesn't impact my central argument about poor rewards, so it's not a big deal. There's no need to be toxic. Due to their argumentative nature,
Everybody already knows what I'm gonna do. They've had complaints about the games for years, but they never wanted to say them because they knew they'd be told to get good. But then once it was popular to say those things about Elden Ring and all the Elden Ring bosses, suddenly the floodgates fucking open. That's why every single fucking criticism is nonsensical and has like 18,000 examples in the Dark Souls series that you could point to. This is why we need to keep telling people to get good. This is why we need to be toxic.
We need to be
okay?
toxic.
They want to criticize
All
us
right?
for being the way that we are. This is what happens if you don't.
I didn't want that to be my motto as a streamer, or like a phrase that people associated with me. But at this point, I think I have to take that bullet, all right? We need to be toxic. We have to gatekeep harder.
I think Fromsoft fans often miss the forest for the trees. One example of this is when I said Shadow of the Erdtree had reskinned Death Knights. This is 5
We need to be
words
toxic to anybody who is this fucking stubborn and refuses to just engage on the game's terms. We need to help people who are actually willing to learn, but
a 7,000-word essay that the comments used to discredit all of my opinions as disingenuous. And you know what the funny part is about all of that? I don't and never said that I disliked the Death Knights. I kind of liked the Death Knights. I just mentioned them in a list with the NPC bosses that
okay, but I remember this specific point because I was going to complain about it after fighting the Death Knights. You included them in a list of things that was like complaints. So yes, people assumed that you had a problem with it because you specifically said another reskinned Death Knight. That was the phrase that you used. So like, I think this is on you again, sir. You said it like that.
I disliked and people assumed. I think this is my fault for not being clear.
Okay.
But to blow
Yes, it was.
up this nitpick to the extent that the comments did is an example of real-time brain rot. Now, if you've been paying attention to the channel for a while, you should have realized that I use the word reskin very loosely. The strict definition means a boss with an identical moveset and a new visual skin. I group copy-paste enemies and bosses with a few changes into the category of reskin, although it does not fit the strict term. I do this because it's a convenient two-syllable word.
No, it's not that it doesn't just fit the strict term, Feeble King. It's that it doesn't fit at all. Because it's not reskinned. That's not what it is. That means something specific. I don't care if you use it in a vague, general way. I'm going to criticize you for that because it's fucking dumb. Say what things are when you talk about them.
I do it kind of
Use
a
the
lot.
right terms.
I thought that people had caught on to that, but apparently they got really, really angry. By my broad definition,
Yeah, okay. Right, yeah. It's everybody else's fault that you're a lazy piece of shit.
skin meaning reusing a substantial amount of an already existing boss's moveset and visuals, I think the Death Knight fits. Both Death Knights can shoot lightning bolts, grab a player to health steal, and have special electricity attacks.
Reskin confirmed!
He's electric, he can either do a variant of a gap closer, or he can do a delayed attack that launches 3 electricity trails. All of this is true
Ooh,
regardless
way more
of
than
which
3.
Death Knight
That's how you know it's unfair.
you are fighting. The only real difference being the timing of the delayed attacks, since both Death Knights have different weapon movesets. This means that the boss model is reused, the boss idea is reused, and many of the boss moves are reused. We can certainly say that a reskin dragon with 1 or 2 new attacks is still basically a reskin, and on the scale of reskin to not reskin, I thought the Death Knights leaned closer to being reskins than unique combat encounters. Maybe I should have said a partially reskinned Death Knight with a new weapon. If I'm being honest, the negative comments about me calling the Death Knights reskins was really quite shocking, because I've been using the broad definition of reskin for a long time now, and nobody cared until I disliked Shadow of the Erdtree. And then those comments got
I think he identified an actual problem, is that he's publicly probably been a dumb fuck about these games for a long time, but nobody noticed until now. I don't know. I mean, like...
thousands of likes. Either way, I am fine with this reskin and never said that I disliked the Death Knight. If changing weapon movesets was the standard for reskinned enemies, I'd have less of an issue with them. To everyone who commented that the video was bad because I said the Death Knights were reskinned, you are the perfect example of missing the forest for the trees.
Okay.
Don't get caught
What about
up
anybody that had substantive criticisms of your video? Like how everything you said was like based on something that was untrue, or like you're stupid, or
in the tiny details of every argument. That isn't where
I don't know how
you find
substantive
the
that one
truth.
is, but that is the main issue that he's having, is that he's dumb.
It'll make everything more boring, like the Death Knight analysis I just did. I could have loved the Death Knights to death, and I still would have disliked exploration in the DLC.
Okay.
Although the comments were very upset about me calling the Death Knights reskins, I think a bigger flaw in the video is in the same sentence. I grouped several non-NPC mini-bosses together into one category of normal enemy-type bosses, because they all felt about as underwhelming as normal enemies. However, I now think I shouldn't have said that. Most of these mini-bosses did have enough changes to be more than normal enemies, except for the blade-throwing guy. I think a better way of saying it is that many mini-bosses had asset reuse that I did not find interesting, and for a game
Wow,
with
I'm
so
glad
many
we spent so long on this just to get to like a fucking that. That's great.
dungeons,
Hooray.
I was hoping that
Glad
more
you figured it out,
bosses
bro. If only that was like anybody's actual problem with your
would be
video.
around the quality of the Death Knights. Another issue with the critique that people had was that I complained about healing speed without having max flasks. I just assumed the 9 was the max and that I already had it because it
We're just gonna glaze right past that as though that's not the stupidest fucking thing ever. Why would you assume 9 was the max? Why would 9 ever be the max of anything in games? Round numbers. We always use round numbers.
9? Okay.
It had been a long time since I played on that character.
I guess 12 isn't technically like a round number, but like it might as well be.
For the final few bosses, I used a ring to increase my healing potency, so I was really just...
Also, the Wikipedia says every sacred tier upgrade increases the effectiveness of flasks at a higher rate. I can guarantee you, Feeble King, that missing a few flask upgrades is a big deal. I went into the DLC with like +8 my first night, and it was a problem. You would have noticed a difference if you had increased your flasks just like a rank or two more.
Slot. And my complaint about healing was about the speed, not the amount, so that...
Okay, but like your overall complaint was about the difficulty, which the amount of health you're able to restore with each flask is going to affect heavily, you stupid fuck. Obviously, the amount that gets healed and the speed with which you heal are not directly related. Yeah, no shit. Is this really what he's really gonna pretend that people... Okay.
This doesn't change my views on anything that I said. I tried to be very, very clear in my critique that I thought Sekiro had the ideal healing speed for fast rhythmic combat. That doesn't mean there are no healing windows against Elden Ring bosses, just that I dislike how difficult it is to find a guaranteed healing window against those bosses.
It's not difficult if you just fucking do it right, sir.
Towards players who are
which is the actual point that I'm sure a billion fucking people made to you.
The boss moveset if they can only heal during specific long openings that they may have not memorized yet. Worse than this, if you are at low health, it forces you to dodge every attack perfectly until you get your healing opportunity.
Yes. That is how it works. That's a good thing.
Which is even more punishing for people learning the boss. To cut down on unnecessary trial and error deaths while you learn to late.
The amount of healing and the speed are related when he felt it necessary to double chug in half the clips he showed. That's true.
It's important that
actually, yeah, fucking extremely solid point. You wouldn't have had to double chug so much if you just upgraded your fucking flasks, moron.
Distance gives you a safe opportunity to heal. This was the standard for almost every single boss in every Fromsoft game until Elden Ring came out. One of the more funny complaints I got was that I was too subjective. If you clicked on an art critique video and got upset that it contained opinions, then I have no words.
What? Okay, anybody who says he was being too subjective is even stupider than he is, because, like, my problem was that he was being too objective in his criticism and trying to say, worst DLC yet. Shit like that. Okay.
For you. That is so silly, it's like walking...
I'd love to see, like, the critics of that he's responding to, because, shit.
Museum and being upset that they have paintings. Let me state it now plainly. I make subjective opinion piece videos. I think people forget this when I speed up the pacing and drama of my video by not saying "in my opinion" every 2 sentences. But in my opinion, subjectivity is implied. I said words like "in my opinion" and "to me" more in this video to drive that point home. Some people might ask that I put "in my opinion."
Okay, but you have an uninformed opinion, Feeble King. Like, the healing speed criticism is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the way the combat works in this game, and that's something that you can't overlook. Like, that, there's other problems with you not understanding the combat, but, like, that's a really big red flag. Like, the problem is not, like, you having an opinion and people trying to, like, take that opinion from yours, being mad that you had an opinion. It's like your opinion is based on things that are incorrect.
All my videos, but it's not like people do that when they're being positive, so that's just a double standard, and it slows down the pacing of the video. Some people misunderstood my last video because I said some Fromsoft fans argued like they were in a cult. So commenters
That's not what you said.
Saying that I said everyone who disagrees with me is in a cult. I never said that.
Okay, you didn't say that either, but
feel free to disagree. I'm not a Disney villain or a politician. I simply think that if you keep up the narrative that all interpreted flaws are the result of player incompetence and not just having subjective differences, then you are arguing like you are
it's
in
not
a cult.
all flaws. It's just the ones that are.
Since the argument only works from the perspective that I'm at fault for disliking something.
Like I never. Like, everybody, even the people who glaze Elden Ring the hardest, said the cross slash was bullshit. There was a brief moment where I was gonna like try to figure it out like it wasn't too tight of a response window. But then I pretty quickly gave up and said, yeah, no, that attack's actually bullshit. They should fix that. Like, I feel like if you're, I don't know, whatever.
That's subjectively great. Get good or use.
It's just the cult thing again. We all know that this is just like
hit trade. What if I don't?
It's a thought terminating cliche. The people opposing me are in a cult. They're just reflexively out to defend the thing they love, and you know.
That. How many different builds do I need to beat the game with to convince people that I don't like it? It's normal to agree to disagree.
It's obvious you don't like it.
Every opinion you have on other people.
But the point is that that's as deep as it is, that you don't like it, and you not liking it is not indicative of some broader flaw with FromSoft's approach, or like that they've gone too far this time, because there's very clear misunderstandings that you're having in your own video.
That is cult-like. Some people were upset that I disliked how punishing the bosses were, but didn't use a weapon with higher damage to beat them. The issue with this argument is that it doesn't take.
I used the same weapon as you, and I didn't have the same problems that you did. So
bosses actually is for me. If I was to use a slightly higher damage weapon, my experience would not be different at all, because the challenging part was never how hard it is to execute the dodge rolls. That's the easy part for me.
Probably should use a higher damage weapon against him. Wow.
The hard part is the trial and error in memorizing the boss's delayed attacks and tight openings. Because the hard part is memorization, once a boss clicks, my damage doesn't really matter because I could keep the dance going.
I mean, like, none of the hard part has always been memorization. Like, nothing has been too executionally difficult. Like, I don't think. I mean, that isn't that way because of external factors, like the way an attack looks, or like you're in a more nervous mood or something. Like, I don't know.
Openings or 30 and I'd be fine. The only exception being extremely low damage numbers where you have to hit the boss over 100 times, but I didn't do that. Now if I used a very high damage weapon and we assume I get a few posture breaks, then I could kill some bosses in around 8 to 10 hits while their moveset is active, which would completely change the experience. I'd either get lucky with guessing my dodge rolls and openings and win without much rhythmic mastery, or I'd hit trade and win without any rhythmic mastery. Both playstyles are not ones that I would find satisfying. If nothing else, I hope that one day FromSoft fans will accept that there is no perfect playstyle for me in Elden Ring that won't have some downside, even if there is a perfect playstyle for them. People were also
This guy would lose his mind if he saw Asylum Demon, Stray Demon, and Demon Fire Sage. True. Welcome to the chat, Zephia Lux. What a way to introduce yourself, by shitting on Feeble King.
so upset that
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed beating many
So true.
games at level. Reason
Alright, here's the cult line. Okay.
Find it so annoying to argue with FromSoft fans is because they always start every conversation from the perspective that every complaint is your fault in some way. Get good. Miyazaki games are inherently perfect. It's so brain dead, like they aren't individuals who think for themselves.
Yeah. So it is definitely a bit more dramatic than he was leading us on to believe in this video.
Level 1, while I also said that Shadow of the Erdtree bosses were too difficult with trial and error. The way I see it, level 1 runs are an optional hard mode after you've already beaten the game, so I'm more lenient when it ends up being hard. Even with that being said, Dark Souls 1 and 3 level 1 runs are easier than Shadow of the Erdtree with a weak build, at least until the final bosses of the DLC.
I'm more okay with difficult bosses when it's a rare endgame challenge. Shadow of the Erdtree is a game full of those types of challenges, which I find tiring. The whole DLC is an endgame challenge. That's why it's like that. Hope that helps.
3. Bloodborne level 4 is a bit too hard for me, and that doesn't really go overboard until it costs near the end. Also, I played most other FromSoft games when Souls Combat was new, so I have a more fond impression of them, while Shadow of the Erdtree is like the 7th-ish version of this combat system, and it doesn't do enough to reignite the spark of passion in my heart. In other words, Elden Ring is Miyazaki's fire, and the flame has finally gone out. Since you've made
Why
it
does
this
it-
far into the video, I want
Why is
to
that-
be
they all
as
so
honest as possible
cringe?
with you about why I fell in love with Souls games in the first place. It wasn't because of the level design, or the world design, or the enemy design, or the lore, or the story, or even the bosses. It wasn't because of any individual part. It was because of the experience, an experience unlike any other. When I first played Dark Souls 1, I thought it was the most unique, creative work of art ever programmed into a video game.
Really?
Many other games feel like theme
Okay.
parks, well put together flashy rides that are meant to entertain, but not Dark Souls. Dark Souls felt like a real world, a dangerous world, one that forced me to play on its terms. Dark Souls
Oh
felt
shit! Careful, don't say that around democracy.
like what the future of
Because playing on the game's terms is bad. Remember.
gaming could become if we valued realizing an artistic vision.
See, people don't
over
even understand what they
creating.
like about these games. Like, Feeble King and Democracy are of a similar mindset when it comes to build and, like, the things they care about in the games. But, like, on this specific issue, they have complete opposite takes because neither of them fucking understands what they're actually appreciating.
Game design. Just like all great fantasy worlds, it felt real enough to exist outside of yourself. Like when you put the game down, the world kept on living. I could give 100 pieces of evidence to justify this opinion, and I've probably already said a bunch of those points in another video. But none of my words really matter because there is a greatness inside of Dark Souls 1 that words cannot express. It's not about difficulty or any cheap marketing taglines. It's about a desire to realize a world above all else.
Okay.
And do not tell me it's nostalgia and that I just hate all games now. I played Devil May Cry 5 for the first time a few months ago and had a similar amount of enjoyment to Dark Souls 1,
Really?
although in a very different way. Now, if you say my love for Dark Souls 1 is because it's my first Souls game, I'd agree. The creativity of a new
Okay.
drew me in,
So
and
then
that's
it is
exactly
nostalgia. Man.
what's pushing me away right now. We can engage
The
in
fuck?
100 internet arguments, and I can closely analyze every little or big flaw in the DLC. It doesn't really matter because I didn't feel any of that Dark Souls.
I'm flabbergasted by the frequency with which these people contradict themselves. It's insane. Do they not listen to themselves speak?
It felt like Fromsoft just made another hard video game that followed the mold set by past entries, and I hate feeling that way. I also don't want difficulty to be at the forefront of every conversation because these games have always been so much more than that, but I have to be honest and say that difficulty is one of the only things I saw this time. And let
Okay.
me be honest again and say that even if all the bosses were nerfed to the difficulty of Dark Souls 3 and Shadow Tree fragments were the rewards for all bosses, I still wouldn't think the DLC is a masterpiece because of how
Okay.
tired the Souls formula is. I think it all goes back to something Matthew Matosis said. FromSoft games are becoming increasingly...
I just like I don't know, like if they keep making games like this, will I feel like this someday? I don't think so. Maybe it's just people don't like these games as much as they thought they did, and like maybe Feeble King dedicating so much of his channel to it was a mistake. I don't know.
Focused on action, combat, and spectacle when it was never what they did best. These used to be the
Because like I haven't even the first one of these I played all the way through was Bloodborne. It hasn't even been a year since I beat it for the first time, but I don't really see myself getting like to this point of burnout like these people are.
games that have a boss get weaker and
I know there's no way to
faker
predict
make you sad,
whether or not
or
it's
the
going to happen
final boss would
accurately,
be a
but
somber
still.
anticlimax. These might seem like small changes, but it's more than that. It's unpredictability. They're curveballs that get an emotional reaction out of the player and let them know that this world is real. The final boss of Shadow of the
Yeah.
Erd Tree being Radon again but harder and more anime is not that. It sounds like bad FromSoft fanfiction.
Does
I want to have an
it?
artistic journey like no other when I play a FromSoft game. I want them to push boundaries by creating new genres and new gameplay experiences. I have high expectations from this studio. I don't want to feel like I'm just going through the motions when I play their games. It almost feels like Shadow of the Erd Tree is the
Okay.
spectacle FromSoft theme park built for maximal popularity that Dark Souls 1 fought so hard against. I was probably a bit too aggressive in my original critique. I would apologize, but you guys know another game will piss me off, and I'll be just as aggressive, so the apology would be empty. At least I hope
Yeah,
didn't make
I
people
would
hate
never
me
expect
forever
you to
if see my
apologize.
videos. My good memories with the Souls series will remain immortalized in my YouTube channel forever. And just because I grew apart
Hooray.
from the direction the series took, that shouldn't make you hate the good times we had. Christ, it sounds
Who
like
knows? Maybe I'll love the next FromSoft game.
breaking up with
whatever.
the FromSoft community. I still might make a Sekiro level 1 video, and maybe I'll play Demon Souls, so there still might be more videos. I would like it
Dude, don't play Demon Souls. It has delayed attacks in it.
for this video focused less on trying to prove my opinions false and more on what you liked and disliked about the game. I know I
There's
did
trial and error in Demon Souls. You'll hate it, Feeble King. Don't. Stay away. I'm gonna save you.
to Joe's video before. However, I think my favorite part about it was the ending section. He raised a lot of very good points. Just like how Bethesda fanboys shut down conversation about their games until the problems passed.
Oh my god. Oh my god, he really did just want to steal from Joseph Anderson.
The same thing could happen to FromSoft. Of course, I don't think From's reputation will ever
Did he just pop up Joseph Anderson's video like
point. The same thing
like
could
that made it less egregious what he's doing here?
Of
No, he didn't. Okay.
course, I don't think
Wow.
From's reputation will ever become as bad
Okay.
as Bethesda's,
Feeble
but
King.
if they release another open world as empty as Shadow of the Erd Tree, I expect there to be more.
Haven't they
backlash.
specifically said they don't want to do more open world games?
And please, FromSoft.
Like again, these people don't even read the news about these games. Like how do you act like you care this much when you can't even be bothered to fucking watch people's videos or read the news about it?
Zoom out the camera against giant bosses and give us a boss refight menu. I hope those are two things that most people in the community can agree on. Before I go, let me say
Starfield
one
jump
more
scare,
thing.
true.
I
Yeah.
mean everything I say in my videos.
Okay.
My videos are not perfect. Sometimes I make them a bit too quickly, or I have a blind spot that prevents me from realizing my mistakes. But I have always been honest with every opinion I've presented.
Okay.
Some people in my position would back down to appease their community, but I will never
I did
change
expect you to,
myself to
so.
fit in with a community that I disagree with. I don't form my opinions by looking around at what other people think. It all comes from what I believe, and it will continue to be that way. Whether you agree or disagree with my opinions, you should know that I would never lie to you, even if it would make you happy. Despite this all being true, I am afraid that people who used to enjoy my channel are getting upset with me because I've disliked so many recent game releases. I will say that most of these games I've disliked have been bloated open world games, but I still understand.
Maybe you should stop
the
playing
points. To
open
show
world
that I
games,
still
Feeble
enjoy
King.
many good video games, I am making a positive critique on Devil May
He's
Cry
doing the
5
same
right
thing to
now, and I hope
Democracy
that the
did.
upcoming fall-winter game releases will be fun. Although if I
Ugh.
dislike something, I will not be afraid to let you know.
Just fucking nut up and be the pessimist that you are. Fuck. It's fine. No one is mad that you're too negative. They're mad that you're wrong. Jesus Christ. People crave negativity online. Have you been on the internet? Fuck. That's like what it's all about.